A battle lost at Yushui River. What is your plan of attack on Liu Pei? Said Shu. Yang Taqiang replied. Though Liu Pei, now camped at Hsiape, could easily be taken, yet Lu Pu is strongly posted at the chief city near, and I think he would help Pei if it was only for the grudge he bears against you for not having given him the gold and stuffs, grain and horses you promised. First of all, you should send Lu Pu a present whereby to engage his affections and keep him quiet while you deal with Liu Pei. You can see to Lu Pu after this is done. Thereupon a large quantity of millet was sent, with letters, by the hand of Han Yin. The gift pleased Lu Pu greatly, and he treated the messenger with great cordiality. Feeling sure of no trouble from that quarter, Yuan Shu told off the leaders of the expedition against Hsiape. When Liu Pei heard these things, he called his officers to take counsel. Chang Fei was for open war forthwith. Sun Xiaqin said their resources were too small. They must lay the position before Lu Pu and ask help. Do you think that fellow will do anything? Said Chang Fei cynically. Liu Pei decided in favor of Sun's proposal and wrote as follows. Humbly I venture to remind you that I am here by your orders and enjoy repose as the result of your kindness, extensive as the heavens. Now Yuan Shu, moved by a desire for revenge, is sending a force against this place, and its destruction is imminent unless you intervene to save it. I trust you will send an army quickly to protect the town, and our happiness will be inexpressible. Receiving this, Lu Pu called in Chern Kung, to whom he said, I have just received gifts from Yuan Shu and a letter, with the intent of restraining me from helping Liu Pei. Now comes a letter from him asking help. It seems to me that Yuan Ter where he is can do me no harm, but if Yuan Shu overcomes Liu Pei, then the power of the north is so much nearer, and I should be unable to resist the attacks of so many leaders and should never sleep secure. I will aid Liu Pei. That is the better course for me. Now the force sent against Hsiape went thither as quickly as possible, and soon the country to the southeast fluttered with pennons by day and blazed with watch fires by night, while the rolling of the drums reverberated from heaven to earth. The few men at Liu Pei's disposal were led out of the city and arranged to make a brave show, but it was good news to him to hear that Lu Pu had arrived and was quite near. He camped only a li away to the southwest. When Yuan Shu's general, Kai Ling, heard of his arrival, he wrote letters reproaching Lu Pu for his treachery. Lu Pu smiled as he read them. I know how to make both of them love me, said he. So he sent invitations to both leaders to come to a banquet. Liu Pei was for accepting the invitation and going, but his brothers dissuaded him, saying, There is some treachery in his heart. I have treated him too well for him to do me any harm, said Yuan Ter. So he mounted and rode away, the two brothers following. They came to the camp. The host said, Now by a special effort I have got you out of danger. I hope you will not forget that when you come into your own. Yuan Ter thanked him heartily and was invited to take a seat. The two brothers took up their usual place as guards. But when Kai Ling was announced, Yuan Ter felt a spasm of fear and got up to go away. You two are invited for the particular purpose of a discussion, said the host. Do not take it amiss. Yuan Ter, being quite ignorant of his intentions, was very uneasy. Presently his fellow guest entered. Seeing Yuan Ter in the tent and in the seat of honor, he was puzzled, hesitated, and tried to withdraw. But the attendants prevented this, and Lu Pu, advancing, laid hold of him and drew him into the tent as he had been a child. Do you wish to slay me? Asked he. Not at all, replied Lu Pu. Then you are going to slay Long Ears. No, not that. Then what does it mean? Yuan Ter and I are brothers. Now, General, you are besieging him, and so I have come to the rescue. Then slay me, said Kai Ling. There would be no sense in that. All my life I have disliked fighting and quarrels, but have loved making peace. And now I want to settle the quarrel between you two. May I ask how you think of doing so? I have a means, and one approved of heaven itself. Then he drew Ling within the tent and led him up to pay. The two men faced each other, full of mutual suspicion, but their host placed himself between them and they took their seats, Liu Pei on the right hand of the host. The banquet began. After a number of courses almost in silence, Lu Pu spoke, saying, "I wish you two gentlemen to listen to me and put an end to your strife." Liu Pei made no reply, but Kai Ling said, "I have come with an army of 10 legions at the express bidding of my master to take Liu Pei. How can I cease the strife? I must fight." "What?" exclaimed Chang Fei, drawing his sword. "Few as we are, we regard you no more than a lot of children. What are you compared with 1,000,000 yellow turbans? You dare to hurt our brother." Kuan Yu urged him to be silent. "Let us see what General Lu has to say first. After that, there will be time to go to our tents and fight. I beg you both to come to an understanding. I cannot let you fight," said Lu Pu. Now on one side Kai Ling was discontented and angry. On the other Chang Fei was dying for a fight, and neither of the two chiefly concerned would signify assent. Then suddenly the host turned to his attendants, saying, "Bring my halberd." They did so, and he sat there gripping the graceful but effective weapon in his right hand. Both guests felt very ill at ease and turned pale. Lu Pu went on, "I have tried to persuade you to make peace, for that is the command of the Most High. It shall be put to the test." He then bade his servants take the halberd outside beyond the gate and set it up. Then speaking to his two guests, he said, "That gate is 150 paces distant. If I can hit that center branch of the halberd head with an arrow, you will both withdraw your armies. If I miss, you can go away and prepare for immediate battle. I shall compel you to abide by what I say." Kai Ling thought to himself, "That small mark at that distance, how could anyone hit it?" So he assented, thinking he would have plenty of fighting after his host had missed the mark. Of course, Liu Pei was willing. They all sat down again, and wine was served. When this had been drunk, the host called for his bow and arrows. Yuan Ter silently prayed that he would hit the mark. Lu Pu turned back his sleeves, carefully fitted an arrow to the string, and pulled the bow to its utmost stretch. A slight exclamation escaped him as the bow curved like the harvest moon sailing through the sky. Twang! Went the bowstring, and the arrow sped like a falling star, and it struck the slender tongue of the halberd head full and square. A roar of acclamation from all sides greeted the exploit. O Lu was a wonderful archer, and the arrow he shot sped straight. By hitting the mark, he saved his friend that day at his Yammern gate. Hu Ai, the archer of ancient days, brought down each mocking sun, and the apes that gibbered to fright Yushui were slain by him, one by one. But we sing of Lu Pu that drew the bow, and his feathered shaft that flew. For a myriad men could doff their mail when he hit the mark so true. Lu Pu laughed loud at the success of his shot. Dropping his bow, he seized his guests by the hand, saying, "The command of heaven indeed, and now you cease from fighting." He ordered the soldier attendants to pour out great goblets of wine, and each drank. Liu Pei in his inmost heart felt rather ashamed. His fellow guest sat silent, nodding his head. Presently he said, "I cannot disobey your command, General, but let me depart. What will my master say, and will he believe me?" "I will write a letter and confirm it," said Lu Pu. After a few more rounds of the wine, Kai Ling asked that he might have the letter, and after that departed. When the brothers took their leave, Lu Pu again reminded Liu Pei that he owed him his deliverance. In a short time the soldiers had gone. Here nothing will be said of the entry of two of the actors in the drama into their own towns. When Kai Ling had got back to Huainan and told the story of the feat of archery and the peacemaking that followed, and had presented the letter, His lord was very wroth. "He repays me for all my grain with this bit of play acting," cried he. "He has saved Liu Pei, but I will lead a large army myself and settle him, and take Lu Pu too." "Be careful, my lord," said Kai Ling. "He is braver and stronger than most men and has wide territory. He and Liu Pei together make a powerful combination, not easy to break. But there is another course. I have found out that his wife, the Lady Yin, has a daughter just of marriageable age, and as you have a son, you could arrange a marriage alliance with Lu Pu. If his daughter wedded your son, he would certainly slay your enemy for you. This is the nothing can separate relations plan." This scheme appealed to Yuan Shu, who soon set about its accomplishment. He sent presents by the hand of Han Yin, who was to discuss the question. When Han saw Lu, he spoke of the immense respect his master had for him and his desire to ensure perpetual alliance between the two families by a marriage, an alliance such as existed between the states Tsin and Qin. Lu Pu was well disposed toward the scheme, but went in to consult his wife. Now Lu Pu had 2 wives and 1 concubine. He first married a lady of the Yin family, and she was the legal wife. Then he took little Cicada as a concubine, and while he was living at Siope, he had married a secondary wife, a daughter of Tsao Pao. She had died quite young, leaving no issue. Neither had his concubine borne any children, so that he had but 1 child, this daughter, of whom he was dotingly fond. When he broached the subject, his wife said, "The Yuans have dominated their part of the country these many years. They have a large army and are very prosperous. One day a Yuan will become emperor, and our daughter may hope to be an empress. But how many sons has he?" "Only this one." "Then we should accept the offer. Even if our daughter does not become an empress, Suchu is nothing to be sad about." Lu Pu decided to accept, and so treated the messenger with extreme generosity. Han Yin went back with a favorable answer. The wedding gifts were then prepared ready for Han Yin to take to the bride's family. They were received, and banquets and merrymaking filled all the time. One day Kung went to see the messenger in his lodging, and when the usual ceremonies and greetings had been exchanged, the 2 men sat down to talk. When the servants had been sent out of earshot, Kung said, "Who originated this scheme by which Yuan Shu and Lu Pu are to become connections by this marriage, so that Liu Pei's head may fall?" Han Yin was terrified. "I pray you not to let it get abroad," said he. "I certainly shall keep it secret. But if there be any delay, some other person will find it out, and that spells failure. What had best be done? I will see Lu Pu, and get him to send the girl immediately, so that the marriage may be concluded quickly. If it happened thus, my master would indeed hold you in high respect." With this, Kung took his leave, and sought an interview with Lu Pu. "I hear your daughter is to be married to Yuan Shu's son. That is capital, but no one knows when. That has yet to be considered. There were certain fixed rules as to the period between sending presents and consummation of the marriage. Emperors, a year. Nobles, half a year. High officers, 3 months, and common people 1 month. Lu Pu replied, "As to Yuan Kung Lu, heaven has already put into his hands 1 imperial jewel, and he will surely arrive at the dignity one day. So, I should think the imperial rule would apply." "No, it will not." "The nobles rule then." "No, nor that." "The high officers." "Not even that." Lu Pu laughed. "Then you mean me to go by the rule for common people?" "Nor that either." "Then what do you mean?" "In the midst of the present troubles, when there is great rivalry between the nobles, do you not see that the others will be exceedingly jealous of your marriage alliance with such a family as the Yuans? Suppose you postpone the choice of the day. Most likely when your fine morning arrives, the wedding party will fall into an ambush on the road, and the bride be carried off. Then what could be done? My opinion is that you would have done better to refuse. But since you have consented, then carry out the plan at once before the lords hear of it, and so send the girl over without delay to Shaochun. You can hire a lodging there till you have selected the wedding day, and the odds are greatly against any failure." "What you say is quite to the point," replied Lu. He went into the private apartments to see his wife, and told her the bride-elect would set out immediately, and the trousseau was to be prepared as far as it could be. On his side, he chose some good horses and had a wedding carriage got ready. The escort consisted of Han Yin and 2 military officers. The procession went out of the city to the sound of music. Now at this time Chern Kui, father of Chern Tang Yuan Lung, was placidly waiting till the evening of his life passed into night. Hearing this burst of music, he inquired the occasion, and the servants told him. "They are working on the relatives our inseparable device then," said he. "Yuan Ter is in danger." Thereupon, in spite of his many infirmities, he went to see Lu Pu. "Noble sir, what brings you here?" asked Lu. "I heard you were dead, and I came to mourn," quavered the old man. "Who said that?" exclaimed his host. "Once upon a time, you received grand presents from the Yuans that you might slay Liu Pei, but you got out by that clever shot at your halberd. Now, they suddenly seek a marriage alliance thinking to get hold of your daughter as a pledge. The next move will be an attack on Xiaope, and that gone, where are you? Whatever they ask in future, grain or men or anything else, and you yield will bring your own end nearer and make you hated all round. If you refuse, then you are false to the duties of a relative, and that will be an excuse to attack you openly. Beside this, Yuan Shu intends to call himself emperor, which would be rebellion, and you would be of the rebels' family, something abominable which the empire would not suffer." Lu Pu was much disturbed to hear this. "I have been misled," cried he. So he hurriedly sent Chang Liu to bring the wedding party back to the city. When they had come, he threw Han Yin into prison and sent a reply to Yuan Shu saying curtly that the girl's trousseau was not ready and she could not be married till it was. Han Yin was sent back to the capital. Lu Pu was hesitating what course to adopt when he heard that Liu Pei was enlisting soldiers and buying horses for no apparent reason. "He is simply doing his duty. There is nothing to be surprised at," said Lu Pu. Then came 2 officers saying, "As you ordered us, we went into Shantung to purchase horses. We had got 300 when, on our way back, on the borders of Paisian, some robbers stole half of them. We hear that the real robbers were Chang Fei and his men, who took on the guise of brigands." Lu Pu was very angry at this and began to prepare an expedition against Xiaope. When Liu Pei heard that an attack threatened, he led out his army to oppose it, and the 2 armies were arrayed. Liu Pei rode to the front and said, "Elder brother, why have you brought an army against me?" Lu Pu began abusing him, saying, "That shot of mine at the Yammern gate saved you from grave danger. Why then did you steal my horses?" "I wanted horses, and I sent out to buy them. Should I dare to take yours?" said Liu. "You stole 150 in the person of your brother Chang Fei. You only used another man's hand." Thereupon Chang Fei, with his spear in rest, rode out saying, "Yes, I stole your good horses, and what more do you expect?" Lu Pu replied, "You goggle-eyed thief, you are always treating me with contempt. Yes, I took your horses and you get angry. You did not say anything when you stole my brother's city." Lu Pu rode forward to give battle and Chang Fei advanced. A reckless fight began, and the 2 warriors kept it up for 100 bouts without a decisive stroke. Then Liu Pei, fearing some accident to his brother, hastily beat the gongs as a signal to retire and led his army into the city. Lu Pu then invested it. Liu Pei called his brother and chid him as the cause of all this misfortune. "Where are the horses?" said he. "In some of the temples and courts," replied Fei. A messenger was sent out to speak softly and offer to restore the stolen horses if hostilities were to cease. Lu Pu was disposed to agree, but Chern Kung opposed. You will suffer by if you do not remove this Liu Pei. Under his influence, the request for peace was rejected and the attack on the city pressed harder. Liu Pei called Mai Chu and son Chien to him to ask advice. Said the latter, the one person that Tsao detests is Lu Pu. Let us then abandon the city and take refuge with Tsao, from whom we may borrow men to destroy him. If we try to get away, who will lead the van? I will do my best, said Chang Fei. So he led the way. Kuan Yu was rearguard, and in the center was Liu Pei with the non-fighting portion. The cavalcade started and went out at the north gate. They met some opposition, but the soldiers were driven off and the besieging force was passed without difficulty. Chang Liu pursued, but was held off by the rearguard. It seemed Lu Pu was not dissatisfied at the flight, for he took no personal trouble to prevent it. He made formal entry into the city, settled local affairs, and appointed a governor. Liu Pei approached Suru and encamped outside the city, whence he sent son Chien to see Tsao and relate the events that brought him there. Tsao was very friendly and said, Liu Pei is as my brother. He invited him to enter the city. Leaving his brothers at the camp, Liu Pei, with son Chien and Mai Chu, went to Tsao, who received him with the greatest respect. The story of Lu Pu's perfidy was again related. He has no sense of right, said Tsao. You and I, my brother, will attack him together. Yuan Ter was very grateful. A banquet was then prepared, and it was late evening before the visitor left for his own camp. Sun Yu then had an interview with his master and said, if you are not on your guard, Liu Pei will be your undoing. You ought to destroy him. He is too much of the hero. Tsao made no reply and his advisor retired. Presently Kuo Chia came and Tsao said, I have been advised to kill Liu Pei. What of such a scheme? A bad scheme, said Kuo. You are the popular champion, pledged to relieve the people from oppression, and only by truth and rectitude can you secure the support of the noble-minded. Your only fear is lest they stay away. Now Liu Pei is famous. He has come to you for help and protection, and to put him to death would be to alienate all good men and put fear into the hearts of all the able advisers. Hampered by these difficulties, where will you find those whose help you need? To remove the dangers represented by one man, and thereby injure yourself in the eyes of all mankind, is a sure means of destruction. These conditions need careful consideration. What you say exactly fits in with what I think, said Tsao, greatly pleased with these remarks. His next step was to memorialize the emperor, to give Liu Pei the governorship of Yuchu. Again Chang Yu said, Liu Pei is certain to rise to the top. He will never remain in a subordinate position. You had better remove him. Now is just the time to make use of good men. I will not forfeit the regard of the world for the sake of removing one individual. Kuo Sio and I both see this in the same light. Wherefore he rejected all persuasion to work against Liu Pei, but sent him soldiers and a large supply of grain, and set him on his way to Yu, Honan. He was to march to Siope, occupy it, call together his former soldiers and attack Lu Pu. When Liu Pei reached Yuchu, he sent to inform Tsao, who prepared to march an army to subjugate Lu Pu. But just then hasty news came that Chiang Kai, who had gone to the attack of Nanyang, had been wounded by a stray arrow and had died. His nephew Siu had succeeded to the command of his army, and with Chia Su as strategist, had joined Liu Pio and camped at Wanqiang. They intended to attack the capital and get possession of the emperor's person. Tsao was placed in a quandary. He would go to attack this combination, but he feared lest Lu Pu would attack the capital if he left it. So he sought the advice of Sun Yu. Lu Pu has no notion of a policy. He is led astray by any little advantage that presents itself to his eyes. All you need do is to obtain promotion for him, giving him some additional title, and tell him to make peace with Yuan Ter, and he will do it. Good, said Tsao, and he acted upon the hint, and sent an officer with the official announcement and a letter urging peace, while he went on with preparations to meet the other danger. When ready, he marched out in 3 divisions. Siahu Tun was the van leader, and they went to Yushui River and camped there. Chia Su succeeded in persuading Chang Su of the hopelessness of resistance. You would do well to surrender since his army is too large for you to oppose, said he. Seeing the truth of this, Su sent his advisor to propose submission. Tsao was greatly pleased with the messenger, admiring his ready and fluent repartee, and tried to win him to his service. I was formerly with Lai Tsui and was held guilty with him. Now I am with Chang, who accepts my advice, and I should not like to abandon him, said Chia Su. He left and next day conducted his master into Tsao's presence. Tsao was generous. Then he entered Wancheng, the greater part of the army being put in camp outside where the lines extended some 10 li. Great banquets were given every day, and Tsao was always being entertained. One day, when Tsao returned to his quarters in a more than usual merry mood, he asked the attendants if there were any singing girls in the city. The son of his elder brother heard the question and said, "Peeping through one of the partitions last evening, I saw a perfectly beautiful woman in one of the courts. They told me she was the wife of Chang Su's uncle. She is very lovely." Tsao, inflamed by the description given him of the beauty, told his nephew to go and bring her to visit him. He did so, supported by an armed escort, and very soon the woman stood before him. She was a beauty indeed, and Tsao asked her name. She replied, "Thy handmaid was wife to Chang Kai. I was born of the Tsu family. Do you know who I am? I have known the minister by reputation a long time. I am happy to see him and be permitted to bow before him," said she. "It was for your sake that I allowed Chang Su to submit. Otherwise I would have slain him and cut him off root and branch," said Tsao. "Indeed, then, I owe my very life to you. I am very grateful," said she. "To see you is a glimpse of paradise, but there is one thing I should like better. Stay here and go with me to the capital, where I will see that you are properly cared for. What do you say to that?" She could but thank him. "But Chang Su will greatly wonder at my prolonged absence, and gossips will begin to talk," said she. "If you like, you can leave the city tomorrow." She did so, but instead of going at once to the capital, she stayed with him among the tents, where Tyne Y was appointed as a special guard over her apartments. Tsao was the only person whom she saw, and he passed the days in idle dalliance with the lady, quite content to let time flow by. But Chang's people told him what had gone amiss, and he was angry at the shame brought upon the family. He confided his trouble to Chia Su, who said, "Keep this secret, wait till he appears again to carry on business, and then." A plan was arranged quite secretly. Not long after this, Chang Su went into Tsao Tso's tent to say that, As many of his men were deserting, it would be well to camp them in the center, and when permission was given, the men of his old command were moved in and placed in 4 camps. But Tyne Y, the especial guard of Tsao's tent, was a man to be feared, being both brave and powerful. It was hard to know how to attack him, so counsel was taken with an officer who share, a man of enormous strength and activity. He could carry a burden of 600 pounds and travel 700 li in a day. He proposed a plan. He said, "The fearsome thing about Tyne Y is his double halberd, but get him to come to a party and make him quite drunk before you send him back. I will mingle among his escort, and so get into his tent and steal away his weapon. One need not fear him then." So the necessary arms were prepared and orders given in the various camps. This done, the intended victim was invited and plied vigorously with wine, so that he was quite intoxicated when he left. And as arranged, the officer mingled with his escort and made away with his weapons. That night, when Tsao was at supper with the lady, he heard the voices of men and neighing of horses, and sent out to ask what it meant. They told him it was the night patrol going the rounds, and he was satisfied. Near the second watch of the night again was heard some noise in the rear of his tent, and one of the fodder carts was reported to be burning. "One of the men has dropped a spark. There is nothing to be alarmed at," said he. But very soon the fire spread on all sides and became alarming. He called Tyne Y, but he, usually so alert, was lying down quite intoxicated. However, the beating of gongs and rolling of drums mingling with his dreams awoke him, and he jumped up. His trusty halberd had disappeared. The enemy was near. He hastily snatched up an infantryman's sword and rushed out. At the gate he saw a crowd of spearmen just bursting in. Tyne Y rushed at them, slashing all around him, and a score or more fell beneath his blows. The others drew back, but the spears stood around him like reeds on the river bank. Being totally without mail, he was soon wounded in several places. He fought desperately till his sword snapped and was no longer of any use. Throwing it aside, he seized a couple of soldiers, and with their bodies as weapons felled half a score of his opponents. The others dared not approach, but they shot arrows at him. These fell thick as rain, but he still maintained the gate against the assailants. However, the mutineers got in by the rear of the camp, and one of them wounded him in the back with a spear thrust. Uttering a loud cry, he fell. The blood gushed from the wound in torrents, and he died. Even after he was dead, not a man dared to come in by the main gate. Tsao, relying on Tyne Y to hold the main gate, had fled in haste by the rear gate. His nephew accompanied him on foot. Then Tsao was wounded by an arrow in the arm, and 3 arrows struck his horse. However, fortunately, the horse was a fine beast from Taoan, full of spirit, and in spite of his wounds, he bore his master swiftly and well as far as the Yushui River. Here some of the pursuers came up, and his nephew was hacked to pieces. Tsao dashed into the river and reached the further side, but there an arrow struck his steed in the eye, and he fell. Tsao's eldest son dismounted and yielded his horse to his father, who galloped on. His son was killed, but he himself got away. Soon after, he met several of his officers who had rallied a few soldiers. The soldiers under Hu Tun seized the occasion to plunder the people. Yu Qin took his men, fell upon them, and slew many. Thus he protected and appeased the people. The plunderers, meeting Tsao on the road, knelt down howling and said Yu Qin had mutinied and attacked them. Tsao was surprised, and when he met Hu Tun, gave orders to attack Yu Qin. Now when Yu Qin saw his master and a great company approaching, he at once stopped the attack and set his men to make a camp. Soon Yu asked him why. "The Qingqiu soldiers say you have turned traitor. Why do you not explain now that the minister has arrived? Why first make a camp? said he. He replied, "Our enemies are coming up in our rear and are very close. It is necessary to prepare for defense, or we shall not withstand them. Explanation is a small matter, but defense is very important." Soon after the camp was finished, Chang Hsu fell upon them in 2 divisions. Yu Qin himself rode out to face them. Chang drew back. The other leader, seeing Yu Qin advance thus boldly, also attacked, and Chang Hsu was overcome. They pursued him a great distance until his force was almost annihilated. With the miserable remnant, he finally fled to Liu Paiyo. Tsao's army reformed and the captains mustered. Then Yu Qin went to see his master and told him of the conduct of the Qingqiu soldiers and their looting, and why he had attacked them. "Why did you not tell me before you made the camp?" Yu Qin related what had occurred. Said Tsao, "When the first thought of a leader in the time of greatest stress is to maintain order and strengthen his defenses, giving no thought to slander but shouldering his burdens manfully, and when he thereby turns a defeat into a victory, who, even of the ancient leaders, can excel him?" He rewarded Yu Qin with a service of plate and a marquisate, but he reprimanded Xiahou Tun for his lack of discipline. Sacrifices in honor of the dead warrior Tine Wai were instituted. Tsao himself led the wailing and paid due honors. Turning to his officers, he said, "I have lost my first-born son, but I grieve not so heavily for him as for Tine Wai. I weep for him." All were sad at the loss of this captain. Then orders were issued to return, but nothing will be said here of the march to the capital. When Wang Tse, bearing the imperial decree, reached Hsuchu, he was met by Lu Pu, who conducted him into the residence where the decree was read. It conferred the title General, Pacificator of the East, and a special seal accompanied the mandate. The private letter was also handed over, and the messenger detailed the high appreciation in which Lu was held by the chief minister of state. Next came news that a messenger from Yuan Shu had arrived. When he had been introduced, he said that Shu's project of declaring himself emperor was advancing. He had already built a palace and would speedily choose an empress and concubines and would come to Huainan. "Has the rebel gone so far?" cried Lu Pu in a rage. He put the messenger to death and Han Yin into the Kang. He drafted a memorial of thanks and sent it to the capital, at the same time sending to Han Yin, the unfortunate agent who had arranged the marriage alliance. He also replied to Tsao private letter asking to be confirmed in his governorship. Tsao was pleased to hear of the rupture of the marriage arrangement, and forthwith put Han Yin to death in the marketplace. However, Xian sent a secret remonstrance to Tsao, vilifying Lu Pu as cruel, stupid, and facile, and advising his destruction. "I know Lu Pu quite well," said Tsao. "He is a wolf with a savage heart, and it will be hard to feed him for long. If it had not been for you and your father, I should not have known all the circumstances, and you must help me to get rid of him." "Anything the minister wishes to do shall have my assistance," was the reply. As a reward, Tsao obtained a grant of grain for the father and a prefecture for the son, who then took his leave. As he was saying farewell, Tsao took him by the hand, saying, "I shall depend upon you in the Eastern affair." Xian nodded acquiescence. Then he returned to Lu Pu, who asked him how he had fared. Xian told him of the gifts to his father, which annoyed Pu. "You did not ask Hsuchu for me, but you got something for yourself. Your father advised me to help Tsao by breaking off the marriage, and now I get nothing at all of what I asked while you and your father get everything. I have been victimized by your father. He threatened Chern with his sword. Chern only laughed, saying, "Oh, how stupid you are, General." How stupid. When I saw Tsao, I said that to keep you going was like feeding a tiger. The tiger must be kept fully fed or he would eat men. But Tsao laughed and replied, "No, not that. One must treat the marquis like a falcon, not feed it till the foxes and hares are done. Hungry the bird is of use, full fed it flies away." I asked who were the quarry. He replied, Yuan Shu, Sun Tsr, Yuan Shao, Liu Pio, Liu Chang and Chang Lu. These are the foxes and hares. Lu Pu threw aside his sword and laughed, saying, "Yes, he understands me." But just about that time came news of the advance of Yuan Shu on Suchu, and that frightened Lu Pu. When discord rose twixt Tsin and Qin, they were attacked by Yue and Wu, and when a promised bride ne'er came, an army marched to enforce the claim. How all this fell out will be shown in the next chapter.